welcome BBC3. Today I'll be talking about some primary and secondary research that I found out about your channel, and from that the idea that I got to pitch my ident to you about my idea for your next ident. So firstly I looked at the history of the channel, and first of all it was called BBC Choice, and the channel named itself as a little bit different. It was a bit weird and a bit of a strange sense of humour, and mainly targeted itself towards young adults, quite similarly to now. And then in 2003, BBC3 started, and it didn't really have an identity of its own. It was a bit of a kind of quirky, strange sense of humour, mainly around 24 to 34-year-olds. But a lot of the shows it showed was just kind of shows from other parts of BBC3, and it didn't really have its own USP. And then in 2008, it went through a major rebrand, and it started targeting a younger audience. As you can see, it changed its logo into lowercase and pink, so it really started to be a bit more cool and a bit more trendy and current, largely like it is today. And in 2014, it is largely what it was in 2008, but the latest obstacle it came across was that now it's going purely online. So obviously, I'm going to talk about it a bit more later, but obviously that could be hindering, but also could be seen as an opportunity. But it basically is the same channel as it was in 2008. So I looked at BBC's mission statement, and it set out three things that was its priorities. It's our vision, our mission, and our values. So our vision was to be the most creative organisation in the world. Our mission was to enrich people's lives in the programmes and services that inform, educate, and entertain. And it had three values. It was independent, impartial, and honest. It said its audience was at the heart of everything they do, and creativity is the lifeblood of organisations. So I took all of this into account when I was thinking about my own ident. So I showed, I looked at the previous BBC3 idents so that I could get an idea of what I wanted to be making. So I'll just show you that now.
Well, the pressure's on for another groom to be in Don't Tell the Bride in half an hour on BBC3, but before that the only pressure is to remember their lines. Oh dear.
Okay, so that's the ident that I looked at, and the first thing I got, there was a lot of bright colours, and without going into too much detail, it was all completely channeled towards a young audience. So as you can see, there was a massive shoe and lipstick and people dancing, all about the theme of clubbing and a night out. So I really thought about these things when I was making my own ident. I wanted to make sure it was completely channeled towards a young audience. It was current, it was trendy, and also used bright colours. And I also wanted to make sure that I kept the logo, which is obviously, as you can see, still lowercase and pink. So where's the channel? Where's the channel now? So as I mentioned before, the primary audience is 16 to 34-year-olds, and a lot of it is teenage themed. So a lot of the programmes that the channel show is kind of some trashy reality TV shows or documentaries that kind of target maybe like young issues or things that young people relate to. And the brand ethos is young, fun, outgoing, and also never afraid to try new things, which is their logo, which is all about bravery and taking risks with comedy, maybe putting things out there that they don't know whether they're going to be successful or not. So I looked at strengths and weaknesses of the channel, and the first strength I came up with was on-trend, current, and cool. So I think that personally the channel is successful in being really like staying up to date and being knowing what young people are interested in, and yeah. And then never afraid to try new things, which is, as I said, their slogan, which I think they have been successful. They put out shows like Bad Education and Cuckoo, which are a bit risky and a little bit strange, but they have all been completely successful. So I think the bravery of the channel is certainly a good thing. Weaknesses is the reputation of BBC, because I think as a young person, when you hear BBC, you probably think of maybe BBC News or BBC4, you think a bit boring, not very interesting. And I think that may be hindering more to a channel like E4, which have Channel 4 to back them up, which is a little bit more young and cool. Clear demographic. You could put this as a strength or a weakness, but I think it's a weakness because it may alienate people out of the target audience. So, for example, it is 16 to 34, so people who are younger or older than that may enjoy BBC3 shows because it is quite a wide range of stuff. So they might feel hindered because they're constantly talking about their target audience, they might feel important rebranding which has been criticised a lot because as an audience, if a channel you really like is constantly rebranding, you may feel a bit confused and not really know what the channel's about. You may not connect with it quite as much as if it had been the same from the beginning. I also looked at opportunities and threats. So I said opportunity is moving exclusively online, which of course could be seen as a threat because it's going to be on less mediums than it was before. But I think that their young audience will really save them in this instance because it's the young audience that are people who are online, they're watching things on the computer. More and more people are connecting with things like Netflix and BBC iPlayer, so I think that's definitely an opportunity for the channel. And also BBC's big budget, I think that of course that's going to help the channel. It might, BBC Three, if it wasn't part of BBC, it may be a bit of a niche channel, not much of a big audience, but it has all the money of BBC behind them to maybe take more risks, as I said before. The threat is it must fit the BBC remit, so it may give them less creative freedom, because I think that maybe they might be held back a bit more, because BBC is such a huge company that it obviously has to be careful. And I said tame and innocent in comparison to channels such as E4, because E4 is known for being a bit more juvenile, a bit more crazy, and I think that maybe BBC Three is kind of its innocent sibling, if you like. It's kind of won't have as much fun with it, I think. Next, I look at competing channels, as I just spoke about. So both E4 and ITVB have the same target audience. It's all geared towards young people. But I think E4, as I said, is a bit more risky and a bit more brave. And ITVB uses social media effectively. So if you look at their adverts, it's all about bringing the audience in. They show pictures from Instagram and Facebook, and I think that's something that BBC Three are yet to conquer. I think social media is so big right now that they really need to learn that if they're going to continue targeting towards a young audience, they need to bring that in to what they're about. Similar reality shows on ITVB. So obviously there's shows such as Dinner Date, and then on BBC Three there's stuff like Don't Tell the Bride, so they're similar in that way. And then finally, they're all spin-off channels. So obviously E4 is part of Channel 4, ITVB is part of ITV, and BBC Three is part of BBC. So they're all geared completely towards a young audience because that's the part of the channel that they are. So I did my own questionnaire to find out what people, not only what people thought of BBC Three as a whole, what they thought of the ident, which I'm just about to show you, and also what they think I should involve in my own ident. So I had 31 respondents. 94% of this target audience were from the target audience of BBC Three, so they were in between 16 and 34. And 84% of the people said that they watched BBC Three. So this is the ident that I showed them. Just gonna work. Shall I just talk about it?
Yeah, it might be just,
Okay. So this ident basically consisted of some kind of really poppy, kind of dubstep music, and there was a lot of animation. It was basically just around the logo with really bright colours. And I was really surprised to find that people really didn't like this ident, because when I first watched this, I thought, this is something I want to aim towards. This is what BBC Three is all about. This is something that I want to do. But people say it was stressful. They said it was too distracting. They said it was too in your face. It was just too much. So I really took that into account. So I wanted to obviously make it different to this if my respondents didn't like it. Even though they didn't like the ident, they did get the brand identity right. So these are things that I gave them options of what they thought, what kind of identity the ident was trying to express. And obviously the main ones that they said were fun and young and outgoing. So I'm glad, so I wanted to carry on, make sure that my ident also successfully gave off the brand identity. Next, I asked about my ident, because my original idea was very feminine. It was completely based towards a female audience. So I said, would it have a negative effect if I aimed it particularly towards a female target audience? And I wasn't expecting such a strong feedback of people saying yes, it would. So a couple of the quotes I got from the comments were, you stereotype women, it can alienate women who feel offended as well as men who feel excluded. It may isolate males and make them not as keen to watch the channel if it represents to be geared towards females, and generalising to females could define not only males but also females. So I'm going to talk about my final ident idea a bit later, but I not completely changed, but I did make sure that it then went out to both a male and female demographic. So I asked them what else should I include in my ident, and these are the comments that I found most useful. So someone said, something quirky, new and simple but clever, nothing too fancy, but something light that makes you chuckle or smile, always nice after a long day of school. Actual people rather than just graphics. It helps people to relate more to what they're watching. Something funny, cute or memorable, or I think it could keep fairly simple. Slow motion's always a good idea. So these are all things that I took into account when making my own ident, mostly because they kind of complied with what I really wanted to do, but it was nice to know that there were people out there who agreed with me. And then, so I came up with 3 ideas, and 2 of these I had to reject, even though I really liked them. So these don't make much sense written down, but I'll explain them. So POV street walk of logo appearances. So I wanted someone walking down the street, and everywhere they look is the BBC logo. So it might be on a billboard, on a T-shirt, on a street lamp. So kind of just everywhere, like bringing the logo to life, basically. But I thought this would be too difficult, because obviously, I thought firstly, with both my ideas actually, filming in a public place would be problematic, because obviously I have to get everyone's permission who I film. So if someone just walked past and I never saw them again, I wouldn't be able to use that footage because I'd already got someone who I didn't have the permission of. Also, I really liked the idea of having it on a billboard, but obviously I can't do that in real life. I can't go and paint it up on the wall. Or I'd need some really skilled animation, which I can't do, and I don't know anyone who can, so that would be problematic. And the next one was logo face paint at a carnival or festival. And the location was the most problematic here, because I'm not going to a festival anytime soon, so I wouldn't be able to get there. And also, again, filming in a public place, problematic with too many strangers around. So I came up with my final idea, and I basically, my first idea before I asked people about the female demographic thing was to have girls getting ready for a party, clothes all over the floor, makeup, and the girl goes to write the 3 in pink lowercase on a mirror. And obviously it was 2 females, so my next idea was to have the same thing. So it starts off with a girl writing the 3 on the mirror, but then it changes, like some sort of like transition, into a group of boys, and he's writing a smoked up mirror, like after you've had a shower, and he's writing the rest of the logo. So that was my idea for the ident.
Okay, lovely. I was wondering, in terms of making your idea, how much is it going to cost you? What location you need, crewing, and your talent?
Okay, so the location I would need is probably would be quite easy. It would just be either a bathroom or a bedroom in a house. I would need about 6 actors, but I could get it down to 4 if that was too many people to get. And budget-wise, I think probably not much. I only need a few props, and the location will be free, and hopefully the actors. So maybe £5 or £10.
Okay. I like this idea. I just think the shower transition thing's a bit odd.
Right.
I think it would look better if it was like some kind of house party. They're at a house party and she writes it in as she's going to the toilet, comes out, and then she mingles in the party, and then the next person comes in to use the toilet and then finishes it off.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That might make more sense, because otherwise you're not sure why the transition of time is there, if that makes sense. I think more logical. What do you think of that?
Yeah, that sounds better.
And I think it should work as a solo idea. I think if you get the kind of look of it right and get it right first time, I think it should work out as a solo idea. So I really like that. Is there anything else I wanted? In terms of uses and gratifications, what do you think the BBC3 idents how do they target audiences?
I would say probably firstly personal identity, because it's trying to link to young audiences, trying to, like, as for example the night out, a lot of people will be like, yeah, I've been on a night as well, I can relate to that. Not sure what else.
Yep. And in terms of budget for BBC3 idents, do you think what do you think the budget sort of been, basically? Do you think it's changed at all over time? Is it high budget or low budget idents, do you think?
I'd say high budget, because